in the grade levels, we're going to be able to come pretty close to a slight increase, but coming as close as possible with being even. So we're looking forward to that. Thanks, Mr. DeVito.
Thank you, Dr. Romanelli. And we'll have the details of this fleshed out more thoroughly before budget adoption. So I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to talk about what the finalized elementary program looks like. We're still towards the beginning of the budget process, so things can change, will change slightly, but the concept, as we outlined, will pretty much stay the same in terms of providing more academic intervention services for our students that allows for greater differentiation of instruction and supports our students not only who may be struggling, but also maybe high achievers to give them the kind of support that they need. I'd like to now go and talk a little bit about equipment and talk a little bit about why there's a change there. So we recently did a policy change where we created a new threshold in terms of what's considered equipment. We changed the definition. Previously, the definition of equipment was any purchase that's over $1,000. But now we want it to be in sync with some other governmental regulations, and that threshold is now $5,000. So some of the purchases that we historically do between that $1,000 and $5,000 in that range are now really considered supplies by definition pursuant to our policy. And it's really more like just a bookkeeping matter in terms of, okay, now these items are going to be purchased out of supplies line as opposed to the equipment line. So that's why you'll see a shift in some of the funding that was in the equipment line down to the supplies. In addition, we'll have like a one-time expense. So in the current year, or maybe in the prior year, we had some cafeteria tables that we purchased for each school. So we have money in there. When we know we need to purchase cafeteria tables, we put the money there. And then when we don't need it anymore, we don't just leave it in the budget, we take it away. But it's not that if anybody needs something, within reason, of course, after some, discussion and consideration, we'll put it in. But we don't have a policy here in this district where if we take it away, you lose it for good. Or if it's in the budget, it's in there for good. So things will fluctuate year to year, depending on the needs. So that's another reason why that equipment line was also reduced. We did have some extra money in for cafeteria tables that we're not planning to purchase for next year, since we already made the purchase. The next item I'd like to cover is the vendor services. So this is that 0.4 object code series. And something that we've been working on is having a clearer categorization of what's a textbook. Now, what's interesting about that is that definition has been changing as our curriculum has been moving further and further into the digital age. And so has the state definition about what can be considered a textbook. The district gets specific textbook aid from the state when we spend money on textbooks, and that definition has been broadened. So we've been working this year on trying to really clarify what's textbook in terms of our purchases, what is it, what money should be in the textbook line, which is a 0.48, versus just a regular supply. So there's a little bit of shifting in vendor services, and 0.48, the textbooks, is actually in that 0.4 line again. Some more bookkeeping, but it does explain some of the shifts between one to the other. Again, we reduced the allocation in vendor services because we had put in new carpeting at Lindell in their library. That, again, one-time purchase, so we've reduced that for the next year's proposed budget because we've already purchased it. The next object code that I'd like to talk about is supplies. And just to piggyback on what I said earlier, in terms of some of the shift from supplies to vendor services, something I'd like to note is that we do have $87 of a per pupil allocation for our students for school supplies that the district provides. And with fluctuations in enrollment, that line is also going to change. So when we see a slight reduction in our enrollment, it's not that we're not providing the same level of supply, it's just that the student numbers change. So therefore, the allocation is also going to be reduced. Something to mention in terms of what's still in the budget and what's been in the budget the past few years is money for flexible furniture. So we've allowed our elementary schools to have about 2 classrooms a year where they can replace the typical desks and chairs with some more flexible furniture that's maybe more comfortable to students or more conducive to the learning environment now than it was in prior years. Curriculum development, which is the function A 2010. It has to do with what our directors do, preparing curriculum, developing curriculum. We're going to talk about that at the next board meeting, which is March 8th. And that also is going to include the elementary portion, which is the Teachers College program. So we're not going to address that tonight, but we're going to address that at the next board meeting. Now is the time for comments and questions, and we first take that from the board first. So I'll ask the board members if they'd like to resume their positions on the dais and up on stage, and we'll take some questions.
Any questions from the board members, comments?
I got one.
Pinto?
Good evening. Thanks again for the great presentation. I just have one question regarding the new school day. I know we're adding additional instruction and we're adding 50 minutes to the school day. How is that going to be impacting, if it does at all, the need for free play and recess in regards to kids at the elementary level?
So that's a great question. We have some flexibility within the schedule that we can allow teachers to find some time in their morning and afternoon to still have that free play, those 50 minutes of free play. For instance, if a block, requires about 65 to 70 minutes of instruction, there may be 84 minutes allocated, and the time for play can be built into there for the teacher, whether it's in the middle, beginning, end, that can be up to their discretion.
With the new day, we're not going to have a reduction. Because I just know that free play and outdoor activities is really important. I just want to make sure there's no reduction.
And
Yes,
just to add, Mr. Pinto, if you remember, I think 2 years ago in the budget cycle, we did add additional experiences, free play, recess, and PE, and those were reduced.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. DeVito, for a wonderful presentation. I really just have a comment, not much of a question. I'm just very glad to see that our district sees the importance of building of the foundation in elementary school, and that we're focusing on helping our youngest kids learn how to be readers and learn how to be successful academically. I think that's very important, so I'm very glad that we acknowledge that. I was also going to ask Sam's question, so I'm very glad that he asked that, because free play is very important to our youngest students. So thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. One is I just wanted to thank the business department because I think it's important for every kid who graduates from Long Beach to have some sense of financial literacy. Sometimes I don't know where kids think money comes from or how to spend it or how to save it. So I think the fact that DECA and those business organizations are emphasizing, the business classes are emphasizing budget and savings and checking accounts and money and where it comes from and investing, I think is just so important as they move ahead. So I was grateful to see that. I just have a couple of questions concerning the elementary presentation. One is I'm just concerned with declining enrollment with, usually, I guess, I might be somewhat primitive, but you would think that with declining enrollment, that budget expenditures might decrease as well. So I'm a little bit wary in terms of that, but I guess I'll be informed of that as we go ahead. I know one of the reasons is the extension of the school day. But I was just particularly concerned about where would the two library media specialists be? Do we know?
Well, we currently have 2 library media specialists in our elementary program, so it's a 0.5 at each of our buildings. If we did expand 2 more additional positions, we would have 1 library media specialist at each building.
And are we saying that that's a necessity in each building? That the 0.5 in each building isn't enough?
Well, what we're trying to do currently is take a look at our levels of academic support. Currently, our library media specialists are teaching our Spirit class in grades 3 through 5, in addition to Dr. King and Dr. Solsky, our LARC teachers. So by our potentially, reworking that special, having our library media specialists take that, it would free up Dr. King and Dr. Solsky to also do some enrichment work in some of our other elementary classes. We've heard from a lot of parents and students that, they're looking for additional enrichment opportunities similar to LARC in the elementary program for all students. So it's something that we're taking a look at how we can provide that in the best way possible.
Okay, one area that wasn't addressed, that had been addressed in prior presentations in elementary ed, was the issue of classroom libraries. And where are we with those?
So we are, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I don't think you're asking.
So we currently, as you know, are implementing the Teachers College reading units of study this year. We started with the Teachers College writing units of study in year one. This current year, we have purchased one set of classroom libraries per grade level. That was instead of purchasing 3 sets of classroom libraries as recommended per grade level, 1 for each teacher. So what our hope is that for this upcoming school year, we will purchase an additional classroom library per grade level to make, really make the sets almost just about full on those grade levels. The cost reduction in terms of the TC program for next year would come in the form of teacher materials. We'll still have the professional development piece built in, but we'll be going down to 4 sessions instead of 5. We still need the classroom libraries for the reading units, but we will not have to purchase those teacher materials as we will now have the program fully implemented.
I just want to make the statement that I make every year at budget time, and that is just because a presentation has been made and we move on to the next area, the next board meeting. Just because we leave tonight does not mean that whatever's been recommended tonight is going to be in the budget. We have a number of different areas that we look at in terms of looking at respective budgets, whether it's special ed, whether it's secondary, whatever it might be. And after looking at all the presentations and trying to determine what would be a reasonable budget or a reasonable presentation or a reasonable program to ask for the community to support. So I just caution people that, gee, anybody leaving tonight saying, oh my God, we're going to have 1 new teachers, 1 AS teachers next year, we're going to have 2 library media specialists. Just because it's been presented tonight does not mean it's going to be in the budget. So I know administration and respective building principals will advocate for the buildings, which we hope they do. But we have to make a wise decision in terms of just how much people can pay. So thank you for the presentation, Mr. DeVito. Anybody else?
Yeah, Doctor, I just have
Okay.
one final question. This would be for you, Mr. DeVito. So I see in here it says there was a change for book purchases and change that line item. I was just curious if there's anything additional for technology, if that's necessary, digital. I know obviously we need textbooks, paper, but we've already kind of moving into that technology digital age as well. So is there a different line item for that? I don't see anything on here.
Right, so the definition of textbook per the state now includes digital books. So that's also going to be purchased out of this textbook line. And that's maybe different from the software or the other projects that we spoke about when we did the technology presentation of computer-assisted instruction. And sometimes the lines are a little bit gray, and it's up to just that you have to have operating rules about whether it's considered as one function versus the other. But part of the reason why we're trying to really streamline our budget codes relating to textbooks is if we have everything in supplies, that's just that $87 per student for the actual school supplies plus the flexible furniture, then everything else should be in the textbook, right? In terms of books, and then everything that's the software should be in the 26, the CIA, we call CIA, computer assisted instruction. So I believe we have enough funding. I think next year, like maybe in 2 years, we can probably start to reduce that line a little bit once we have a sense of the Teachers College program has settled, the classroom libraries have been established, and then it's just kind of replenishing what we need. But I think in terms of scaling up and what we've needed to get our classroom libraries to be fully functional in the way to support our program, I think after next year, we'll probably be at a good point, and then we can start to see, maybe we can take some of those costs down a little bit.
Thank you. And then Dr. Romanelli, my question for you is, I echo Dr. Ryan's sentiments about the business program and just having those conversations. And I noticed in the video, I actually recognize a lot of those children. So they were more secondary. Some of them are my son's friends. So I'm just curious, as far as the elementary lower levels, are we infusing those kinds of conversations of budgets and business on, of course, an appropriate level, but I just wanted to see how that was kind of transitioning over into the younger grades.
Yes, we definitely are including that in our elementary and our middle school. As a matter of fact, we're looking at an additional, I shouldn't say additional, reworked elective at the middle school level called STEM Business and Agriculture, where we can learn algebra and business concepts through hands-on approach to learning. We have students, creating t-shirts and selling them in business model, using our greenhouse to be growing different items and looking at how they can understand the costs of running a business in the area of agriculture. So we're looking at that. We're building those into our elementary enrichment program after school, and we also have that included in our math curriculum at the elementary school as well.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Because I heard that one student say, we don't have those conversations at home. And
Right.
that hit me as, you know what, I didn't have those conversations growing up either, and I wish I did. I know a lot more now about money, how to manage it, so thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving right along, student organization announcements. Anybody? No. Questions or comments from the public on tonight's agenda only? On tonight's agenda only?
Right, Andrew Wolf, 241 East Broadway. So with regard to that business program, that's outstanding. I'm so happy to see that. My next comment has to do with the amendment to the school reopening plan, which we'll be discussing in a little bit. So my question is, what if there is a conflict with mandates, as we've seen in the past? For example, we had one day when the mask mandates were declared unconstitutional, yet the district chose to keep the mandates in place. While it was only one day, we missed such an important opportunity for our children and staff also to experience freedom and normalcy. While he was, it was just for one day, but even just that little taste of freedom, I think would have been so important towards building momentum towards these goals of getting back to normal. So if there is a conflict with mandates in the future, for example, if let's say one entity says that it's unconstitutional or no longer in place, but let's say the governor says, no, we're still doing it, what are you going to do? Are you going to side with freedom or tyranny?
So I was going to address this when the amendment came up. So our reopening plan was adopted in August ahead of the state mandate. So our Board of Education, which is a local legislative body, adopted a reopening plan that mandated masks in our district prior to the state doing that. We knew it was coming, obviously. So during that one day, we were actually still required to keep that in place because our Board of Education put that in place, not the state. The amendment that's on the agenda tonight aligns our reopening plan with the state's. So when we put that in place in August, we did so, if you remember that meeting, because we wanted kids in school. And that would prevent us from having to quarantine large numbers of kids. I think we're in a very different place now, and it is our intention that once that state mandate is lifted, which we hope will be soon, we will lift it immediately as well. So this amendment tonight ties it to that, so there should be no conflict.
But, specifically, you will be doing whatever the governor in particular says?
We have to do that. We can do more, but not less.
What if a different government?
Excuse me, let me just let those who might be here for the first time, if you have anything to say, you're welcome to come up and you have 3 minutes to address the board. Please give up. Thank you.
So what if a different government agency were to say masks are not required?
We're only subject to state ed and state DOH are the ones that govern school rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
I do hope that you will stand up at some point if this keeps going up, and at some point you gotta say enough's enough.
Thank you. Sir, you had your hand up, did you want to? Okay. You just give, no, please, just your name and address, please.
My name is Brendan Egan, 31 Wyoming, and I've been turn the mic on.
So I've been going for it, before the state was in place, I understand where you're coming from, that you're saying that they have to, but that's nonsense. It's nonsense. We all know the masks you're wearing right now do nothing. They don't do anything. We all know this now. I asked you, I'm so infuriated. What was the vote that you guys had then? Because I believe, was it Mr. Pinto, that you voted that the children not wear masks? If I have that wrong? Did you have a vote?
On the reopening plan.
And you voted
I voted
without masks?
No, it wasn't about the mask, against reopening.
No, the studies you had sent me. I'm sorry?
We can't hear.
No one can hear because you guys have masks on.
So
I
you
don't do
have,
anything.
yeah, I don't want to waste your time, but you have 3 minutes. So if you may want to ask all your questions at once.
I don't think they heard. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I couldn't hear Mr. Pinto.
They're trying, no one knows
You were asking about the reopening plan,
the vote.
that vote, and I voted no.
For what?
The reopening plan. That day. There was a handful of things on a plan, and I voted no.
Does that have nothing to do with masks?
Masks were part of the plan then.
And you're the only person out of everybody up here that voted what?
I voted no against the plan, but I do support the rest of the board.
Okay. And you had sent me some stuff today on a bunch of like nonsense. Like, what was that? I don't understand what, everything you sent it, but either was it peer reviewed or it was from 2020 when they first opened. It's horrifying that you're supposed to be protecting these kids and you're failing them miserably.
Please,
Mike,
I
How
wouldn't,
much time do I have?
well, I'm not questioning your time. I'd like you to direct that to me. She serves at the Board of Education. So if you're going to take out your wrath, please take it out on the Board of Education.
I'm just gonna do what I'm doing, okay, and then I'm gonna leave. These 5-year-olds, and everybody's kids, regardless of their age, they have no idea how badly you're failing them, and it's just a disgrace.
Anybody else? Okay, those of you who might be here for the first time, we don't encourage any applaud or any booing. In terms of that, we respect everybody's opinion, so if you refrain from that, we'd be grateful. Please.
I'll speak. My name is Russell Schneider. I live at 469 Magnolia Boulevard. What you said was absolutely wrong. What Governor Hochul did was unconstitutional. When you said the Board of Education, what you went through, I've been to many different school board meetings. Not one school board has sat there and said what you just said. You're lying to the parents. It's not right. Whoa, before you say anything, you know it's wrong when a teacher has to embarrass a child to put a mask on. It's wrong. It's not right. These kids are suffering. Mental health and suicide rates amongst these kids is up over 50%. Over 50%. The judge didn't rule whether the masks were right or wrong. He ruled that the masks were unconstitutional. And the way that Governor Hochul went about it was unconstitutional. And even CNN, the good glorious CNN, said today that it should be parental choice whether they wear the mask or not. It's not up to you guys. It's not. You are not here to govern or to rule how these kids go to school. When I got messages from parents saying, oh, they're forcing our kids to wear masks, that's disgusting. It's embarrassing. You realize that you guys are liable for a lawsuit right now? You guys are liable to be arrested? I don't know who your lawyer is, but the lawyer who's leading you right now is leading you in the wrong direction. You need to be aware of this because this is serious stuff. Because we're going to get a ruling soon. I'm in contact with the lawyers. I'm part of a group. We're in contact with the lawyers. We're going to get a ruling soon. And we're going to hear from it. And no matter what this tyrant thinks she's going to do, we won. But you have to realize what she did was unconstitutional. And by you enforcing it is violating constitutional rights. You have to realize that. You have anything to say? I mean,
No, I'm glad you directed the questions to the board. Thank you.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I I'm sorry, but did you cover all of the agenda items and then we talk?
Ideally, yes, when the opening plan was going to be presented, that would be the time, but.
A little hard to hear you guys.
So the opening plan was presented, the
No, it's on the agenda.
amendments were
It's on the
presented?
agenda.
Yeah, you could talk about it.
All right, so I'm just trying to get the.
Question, if I could ask a quick question, is that part of my 3 minutes? Nick Zioli, 99 Wyoming. If I just ask a quick question, is that part of the 3 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, forget it. Has anyone in the state superimposed charts of districts without mandates versus districts with? You will find no discernible difference whatsoever in spread. What more do we need to know? This discussion should start and end with this. They have the audacity to cite science while at the same time promoting a one-size-fits-all approach for all students of all ages in all indoor settings. That by definition is unscientific and flies in the face of all research standards and practices. You've simply hijacked the word. This state has selectively ignored every independent, apolitical, controlled study. They've ignored the actions of countries we once looked to for guidance. Some countries never even considered masking for young children, and rightfully so, and miraculously their children are fine and have thrived. I'll concede if every child, teacher, and staff member were to properly wear a fitted N95 mask without any breaks and without eating for the entire day, you would see a drop in spread. We'd also see half the school fainting from hypoxia by midday, but had to do our part, right? My 5-year-old now, having gone through pre-K and most of kindergarten masked with his teacher masked and his classmates, now has trouble in social settings without one. We see increases in children seeking speech therapy, increases in anxiety, decreases in test scores, and a host of other educational shortcomings. But this, I guess, is acceptable due to an abundance of caution. He has lost 2 years of what should have been 2 years of the education he deserved that he will never get back, all because the adults in charge failed him. Nuance and logic left the building the day we started bleaching our groceries. You literally have children competing in contact sports, wearing masks, breathing heavy, sweating in close contact. This is quite possibly the most insane thing I've ever witnessed. Does anyone actually believe this is necessary and/or effective? It's theater. It's not scientific. A consensus of medical professionals state cloth masks are little more than face decoration. Our own governor, who's imposing the mandates, is quoted as saying, continue to wear the mask, the ones that make a difference, the N95s. In other words, the other ones do not make a difference. Have you noticed there's not been a single metric published as to when these mandates would be removed? Do you wonder why that is? Wouldn't that be scientific? To those who say they want the mandate continued, I ask you, until when? What milestone? Zero COVID? That's not possible. So when? Until you feel comfortable? Until every kid is vaccinated, knowing full well there's no spread reduction, and that you can get your own child vaccinated at any moment? The vaccine works, right? I, for one, will not sacrifice any part of my child's education for an adult's unquantifiable comfort, and I wouldn't expect you to do the same for me. If you want to put your child in an N95 all day, which even OSHA says would be negligence on your part, that's your prerogative and your conscience to deal with. On a personal note, we've given up on this state, my beloved hometown, and those who actively choose to continue living in this fog of fear. Should this mandate continue, I'd encourage others to do the same. Pull your kids, find somewhere that will let them enjoy their childhood to the extent they deserve. They only get one.
Thank you. Yeah, when I ask again.
Oh, okay. Dr. Pamela Banks, based on West Bay Drive. First, I would love to commend you on recognizing the need to increase the number of students exposed to enrichment programs. I think that the law program is wonderful. However, I feel that more students should be able to receive those services, and I commend you on recognizing that and trying to expand that. For the public, I was on the school board in another school, and the public needs to know that unfortunately the school board is required to do what the state mandates. So I know your parents are upset, but they are doing what's required by law. Just want you to know you're hearing that from someone in the audience. And you also know that it's very difficult for students to wear masks. I'm a pediatrician. I deal with this every single day. Not all masks do work, some do, and we are trying to keep the children safe. That's all I'm going to say. But I do recognize that it's very difficult, and I just want to let you know that somebody does appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim Kramer, 361 East Broadway. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak tonight. The way I see it, there are two scenarios that the Board of Ed has endured throughout this 2-year process. The first scenario, you know in your heart of hearts that the ineffective, useless mask mandate is wrong and you comply with the order anyway. Instead of having the courage to stand up and fight for those who can't fight for themselves. That's the true definition of a hero, by the way. Fighting for those who can't help themselves, okay? Which is your duty as a school board. You choose to cower in the name of unlawful, unhealthy, and unnecessary orders from politicians who refuse to follow the science. The second scenario is that after 2 years of data and research, you still believe that these masks, think about it, 2 years we've been doing this, not 2 weeks, not 2 months, 2 years, 2 years, it's hard to believe, that these masks have some sort of preventive properties or health benefits, when they are instead harming our children in ways that we can't even quantify. For those if those are your beliefs, I would argue you don't have critical thinking to perform this job and you should resign immediately. Both of these scenarios are troubling. Only you know which one you fall under. And at some point, I hope you have the courage to stand up and fight for parents who want the choice for their children. The parents and families that want the mask removed don't feel they are being represented, okay? They don't believe that the school board is fighting on their behalf and sending letters and having resistance and correspondence with the state. We don't feel we're being represented, and that is our main argument. We want the choice for our children to wear a mask or not, and there's only one, it's a one-way street and it's not fair.
Okay, anybody else?
Sean Pastuch, 428 West Market. I'm not going to debate the merits of the science, and I know that that's not really what you're allowed to do either. What I will say to you is this. I think that what the last gentleman said about not feeling represented is perhaps the area where there's the most frustration amongst, I'll speak for myself, for me. And something that I don't understand, that I don't know, that I'm asking for clarification on is, if the state and the district don't agree, what is the penalty of not complying with the state? I think it would be valuable for the parents, myself especially, and speaking for myself, to know that, and then to discuss as a group how we decide whether that's a penalty that we want to incur or not, for the exchange of the choice of whether our kids continue to wear masks. That I'll let you interpret the science.
Is that your only question, Mr. Dr. Pastuch?
Let me see if I have another one. It would just be, do we have the autonomy as a district to decide? Once we know what the penalty is, let's say the penalty is, I'm making something up, I know it's not a fine, let's just pretend it was a fine. Could we put it to a vote amongst the parents and say, we want to pay the fine? We're done with this. I'm just curious what the ramifications of non-complying are and what our autonomy as individuals is to decide on it.
What we were told is that the state would shut down districts that did not comply and force us to go virtual.
Can you speak up, please?
She said that the state would shut down districts and force them to go virtual. So I don't know enough to argue the merits.
And I'm telling you what we were told.
So I think what would be valuable, it would be to understand through what measures, to understand all of the levers that the state potentially would have to pull, so that we could make a determination as a group if we wanted to build our own strategy to resist that. Because it is becoming untenable. And I understand that February 21st, if I'm not mistaken, is the end of the New York State mandate, and we're probably speaking into we're pissing into the wind right now. This whole thing is over on February 21st, God willing. I think the concern really is around what if they were to extend it and all of these kinds of things. So I appreciate you hearing me, and I know that you're not able to interpret the science and make a scientific decision. I would love to make a policy decision as a group.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Good evening, board members.
Yes, if you just give your name and address, son, please.
My name is Christina Kramer. I'm 11 years old, and I'm a student at Long Beach Middle School. I live at 361 East Broadway.
Thank you.
Although I don't like sitting far away from my friends when I'm eating lunch, I do notice that because of the social distancing, there are shorter lines to wait on for lunch. This is one of the very few benefits that has happened because of the COVID regulations. But there are a few things about the middle school I'm here to address that I am not in favor of. TRT. A student in my class was reading a book from our library. Our police officer was harassing a black male, and it made me think that cops are not behaving appropriately. It made me think that black people will not like cops anymore once they hear this is the way they treat black people. It upset me because I support the police, and this book represented only a bad police officer. Women's Empowerment Club. I personally think the Women's Empowerment Club is actually kind of sexist. Because where's the Men's Empowerment Club? Where's the club that helps boys empower themselves? Why does the school favor one gender over the other? Vaccines. Now hear me out. I don't think all the original vaccines are bad. They actually prevented me from getting those diseases. But I think this one just doesn't work. There have been countless cases of people that have gotten COVID that are double, triple, quadruple, whatever, COVID vaxxed. And personally, I think that vaccinating people by force is unconstitutional and should not be required in school. Masks. I think masks are a way to cover up my emotions and make me obedient. I hate that I can't see my teachers and my friends' faces. I also don't think that masks actually work. Can somebody please tell me why I can sit in a restaurant and eat with strangers, but I'm not allowed to sit masks beside our desks? I'm not telling other students what they should do, but I truly believe that children should have a choice whether or not they want to wear a mask. If masks work, why don't they work? I'm counting on you to advocate for me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, I'm Riley English, and I live at 510 East Harrison Street. I attend Lydia Elementary School, and I want to tell you about the experience I had the day we were able to do school with no masks. I met a bunch of my friends outside, and we were all super excited to go into school without masks on. I entered the building, and I was told to head to the nurse because I needed to wear a mask. I knew that I did not have to wear a mask that day, so I said no. I was really proud of myself that I stood up for myself and said no. I was told I'm not allowed in the school building without a mask, and I was asked to leave. I didn't understand why. We went to the superintendent's office to ask why I was not allowed in the school. I wanted to go to school. We were told someone would get back to us. Maybe 45 minutes later after school started, we got a call saying that we were allowed into school without a mask on. I was so excited. Honestly, it was the best day so far. I really want to know when we will be allowed to go into school and not wear a mask. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Hi, Christina Kramer, 361 East Broadway. Good evening, board members. As our elected board members, you state both in person and in emails to parents that you look forward to the day when masks can be removed. You all sat here on the stage and voted in masking for our children in the reopening plan and declared you only did that to keep them from being quarantined and for, as you put it, continuity in education, which implied that you were not in favor of masking. So I ask, why doesn't anyone up there ever speak about or send out emails about researching creative ways to help advocate for our children as the other Long Island districts do? From my standpoint, all I see is that we accept funding $1,237 per student with additional monies for COVID relief and follow orders in order to keep the money flowing. Please explain how you're advocating for the greater good. And by the greater good, I'm referring to parental choice. I'm aware of only one letter to the governor that Ms. Brona drafted kindly requesting metrics for unmasking that didn't receive a response and has been renewed. I would like to know if those metrics were received. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you that when you created the original reopening plan options, I sent you an email asking why there was no option to return to normal based on quantifiable metrics. I'd like to know why that option was excluded in our original district reopening plan. And how is it that you're going to do the same thing with this proposed amendment by excluding metrics? Once again, if you don't include the metrics as an option, we will always be subject to these arbitrary, tyrannical mask mandates that are doing more harm than any novel virus with a 0% death rate ever could. And now, these are your proposed amendments, whereas the district would like for our local school mask mandate to sunset with the New York State mask mandate. How about demanding the mask mandate be vacated immediately based on data and research that masks don't work? All the supporting science and data is published, and there is absolutely no data that supports masking our children for 2 years helped stop the transmission of anything. If the governor or anyone else wants to muzzle our children, perhaps the onus should be on them to prove that they work. If masks work, then why don't they work? If your amendment for our reopening plan to the state at the district's mandatory masking policy will end at such time when the New York State mandate is lifted, whenever that is, so once again, you're asking for permission for our children to be abused until the state lifts an arbitrary mandate. My question is, can we possibly do better for our district? Can we work on some actionable wording that will be an immediate call to action for mask removal based on our local rate of 0 child deaths in Long Beach due to COVID? I ask that you assertively put some effort into your amendment request and include some quantifiable metrics, perhaps a percentage per school or for the district that can be measured. We know you're keeping track because we get those daily COVID emails. Why not use that data to help advocate for parental choice? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Are they gonna answer your question?
No.
You're not gonna answer our questions?
Well, we will address when we talk about the amendment.
Gina Pouchin, P441 West Market. I just wanted to commend these children for coming here to speak on behalf of themselves. At the same time, I think it's sad that there's children pleading with you to be able to breathe in school again. I also was going to have the same question, that if the mandate is going to go forward, and you said that the governor or they would shut down the district, what right would they have to do that if we're paying school taxes and that would be a parental choice? Maybe what needs to happen is we need to stand up, because what's happening is we're being bullied and it's unconstitutional. And if we don't stand up, it'll continue to happen with other things more than a mask or a vaccine. It'll be something next. So I think I urge you, representing our school district, to do the right thing and stand up.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay.
Abby Marsden, 71 Austin Road, Island Walk. I just have one question. Why in the world is it so cold in here? That's one. Two, I'm going to be asking, I have something along the topic that everybody else has, but different. My son is in sports, free of in sports, going into the third one this week. He has his own water bottle. He's cleaned every night, no problem. And we got a middle one because you had to have one for COVID. And you have to go to a special COVID water fountain. And he fills his water only here and in the high school. When are those water fountains that are supposedly filtered changed? When is their filter changed? Because this water bottle that he has inhibited such a smell of mold that you can never believe it. I've bleached, I've done everything. I've put in the sun, baking soda, baking powder, whatever you want to think. I've gone to at least 8 of them. So I know it has a meter on it. You saved 8,988 plastic bottles, which is great. But when are those filters actually changed? That's my one problem, quick question. Number 2, nobody can take away your money from the school, because then every single person that they're taking the money away from is going against faith. Now, faith is free and appropriate public education. Every child in the district is entitled to it. So right there is a lie.
Okay, Mr. DeVito, did you have an answer to the filter?
Well, I know that they're changed regularly, because I know it's part of the custodial responsibility to change the filters in the water bottle filling station. I don't know exactly what the timing is. I don't know if it's weekly. I don't know if it's, more than that, but I can certainly find out and let the board know.
And also, why is L4, the work fountain L4 here in the middle school, still closed? And it's got to take over it. Well, if we're going to have it be filtered water to stay away from COVID, why don't we just fix it? Instead of just saying being unrepaired over 2 years now.
Okay, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Hi, Erin Chavis, 17 Vermont Street. I have a question about the elementary program, and just curious, in option 2, was there an option to extend the school day by 15 minutes? And are we extending it at the end of the day or the beginning of the day? And also, you're talking about reducing class sizes. So like right now, my daughter's in a class of 14. So next year she might be in a class of like 23, 26 students. And also I have a question about the elementary special area classes being consolidated. What exactly does that mean?
Dr. Manelli, you want to take that?
Sure, so just first, the special area classes being consolidated, it's really not necessarily a consolidation, but more that when we have less sections, per grade level, we don't need as many special area classes for our students because there are less classes going to specials. So that may result in some savings there regarding staffing for the special area classes.
I don't think it was a take-home assignment. You didn't answer her questions. Why not?
What were the first 2 questions? Class size, there are currently 2 4th grade classes that we're looking to consolidate at 2 different buildings. We feel that, the class sizes still would be in the low 20s, and for the higher level elementary school grades, we feel that that's a very appropriate class size in the low 20s. Comparatively across, other districts in Nassau County, and just what we're seeing, we have many sizes already in the low 20s across the district, so it kind of evens those out. Oh, and the 15 minutes either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, we're still working out the exact time of the school day, just with our transportation needs, but we are trying to, I believe we have it sort of penciled in right now that the day ends around 3:40. And then buses will go at 3:50.
A little later, we said around closer to.
Yeah, so we're still figuring that out, but we're trying to not have the elementary day end too late, because we know that was a concern for parents. We also have the middle school start time and high school start time to consider as well. So we will definitely publicize that when we have that finished with transportation figured out.
Are you guys going to answer her questions that she asked?
Excuse me, sir.
Are you?
We don't take questions from the floor, okay? People have a question, they come up to the mic. And I said we would be answering questions concerning that when we discuss the issue on the agenda when it appears. Anybody else? Okay, moving along. Treasurer's report for December 2021, no action. May I have a motion for approval of minutes for executive session and regular meeting of January 11, 2022. Executive session and workshop meeting of January 25, 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Pace?
Yes.
Pinto?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Presentation to the superintendent?
Thank you, Dr. Wright. I'd ask the board to consider item number 1, certificated personnel.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would just really like to thank everyone and wish them good luck on their retirement. I want to thank them for their dedication and their hard work to our students and to our Long Beach School District community.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to second that. Thank you for your service to the district. Good luck in retirement. Welcome aboard to the district.
Okay. Going to a vote. Pace?
Yes.
Pinto?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Item number 2, non-certificated personnel.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Pinto?
Yes.
Yes.
Conway? Yes. I vote yes.
Item number 3 is the adoption of the amendment to the school reopening plan. Again, that changes our reopening plan to see that we will align with the state mandate. Our current mandate now goes further than the state mandate. We're taking that back. In answer to Ms. Kramer's questions, we did not put metrics in our school reopening plans because, as we said then, we don't have the ability to create those metrics. We're not public health experts.
You
We
have
did
the
not
numbers,
feel
you
that.
send us the emails every day. How many kids?
She's responding to your question, Ms. Kramer, please. It's not a dialogue at this point.
Why wouldn't it be? We need to have that.
I think the other question you asked is why we don't encourage parents or put in the reopening plan metrics or suggestions for advocacy. I would remind you that not all parents feel as you do, and we hear from those parents
some
daily as well. Some do, but we don't advocate for particular political positions.
It's not a political position to.
Excuse me, we're not going to have a discussion. You asked for a comment from the board. Please, it's not your first time at a school board meeting.
Board of
But
Education.
when she's saying it's for politics, it's not for me.
Mrs. Kramer.
I listened to you.
Go ahead.
This Board of Education wrote a letter to the governor in November asking for metrics. We have continued to advocate through our respective agencies, the New York State School Boards Association and New York State Superintendent's Council. That is the most effective way for us to advocate. We could write letters till the cows come home. If we go through our agencies and say we need these metrics, that is the way to make a difference. We met with
Excuse me, ma'am, we do not encourage discussion from the floor. Would you please allow the superintendent to finish?
We are doing everything we can to make sure that when the time comes that state officials, public health officials determine that we can remove the masks, there are no other obstacles in the way. That's what this amendment is about.
May I have a motion? I'll make the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms.
Why
Pace?
don't you join the other schools?
Ms.
and
Pace?
Sign a letter on
Mr. Pinto? Ms. Conway?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, moving along.
Item 4 and 5 are just first reading of policies. No action is necessary, and I'd ask the board to consider items 6 through 16 together.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the people that sat on the committee for looking at the code of conduct and the homebound instruction policies. Not the most exciting thing to do in terms of that, but I'm grateful, we're grateful for your service and for revising those plans. Okay, motion for 6 through 16.
Okay.
Pinto, may I have a second?
Second.
Conway, any discussion? Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Pinto?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
I vote yes. Board of Election, any We're all business? No? Questions and comments from the public?
You told us to couldn't talk.
Please, ma'am.
So I'm studying 22 Walnut. So as you're saying that you have to follow everything that the state brings and the Department of Health. So if they do implement vaccinations for the school, are you gonna comply with that as well? You are. Okay, you just said you're having a decline in kindergarten registration. What are you gonna do when we all pull our kids? We lost her written to the government. You don't have to. Massapequa stood up, Bethpage stood up, there's a bunch of towns that stood up.
But they still follow.
You're acting like it's.
No, they didn't.
It's all political.
Okay, anybody else?
All political.
Just on anything?
And you're all,
Questions and comments from the public? This is not your first time in a school board meeting.
yeah, it actually is.
No, I'm talking to the person that asked me the question. No. Please.
Hi, Johanna Sofield, 535 Grand Boulevard, Long Beach, New York. I have a question as a parent and then something else. Just because it seems sort of vague to me, it says here, whereas face coverings, masks, so as to ensure that our local school mandate sunsets with applicable federal, state, county, and/or local mask mandates. So school districts across the nation, certainly in this state, seems to pick and choose who they listen to because each school district has acted different, in a different manner. Everything from graduations to now with whether or not, they could or could not wear masks for a day. So if the county says no masks, where Virginia's dealing with it right now, and the state says something else, I think that some of the parents, and I see a lot of progress, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So I'm very hopeful that the district is moving in the right direction. I do feel like as a whole, everybody was a little paralyzed and really did not advocate or hear everybody's concerns. And I think we've really moved forward a great deal from what I see behind the scenes. But my question would be, or maybe just to reiterate so you guys fully understand. I mean, there are cousins, relatives, friends in different districts, Massapequa, and we're all friends with each other. And there's a lot of weight that goes into demonstrating that you're willing to write the letter, and you might not feel that it's of significant value based on your professional experience, but there's the public relations component to it that has tremendous value. And I've said that all along. It's like the perception, even to the children, seems to, have a lot of weight. It happened with the graduation, and I kept pushing for just ask why we can't have the graduation. Advocate that you want it. And there's a value in that, and it actually is elected, to the elected officials. It shows that, you're not representing necessarily a union so much as the parents and the students, which is, why we elect you. So I do think there's value in that maybe, in a closer meeting you could talk about to say, is that something we want to do for the district, for the parents that are concerned? Separate, I will say, as a parent whose child participated in it, Dr. Ryan, I think I saw you at one, I'm not sure, maybe both. Beauty and the Beast, there were 3 gymnastics, for anybody here that didn't know it, 3 female gymnastics teams, I think 4 teams, wrestling teams, and a girl sang the national anthem, and it was a great display of moving forward. And honestly, most people wear masks the way I'm wearing it right now. So we can actually sort of support, and based on also the qualifier that this weekend, we haven't seen a spike. So maybe that's where the advocacy could come in. Maybe our own observation is worth its weight in gold. And maybe you can just present to the people, to the people that vote you in and hear their concerns. I heard the ding. I just want to say something separately. A question. does every school board member get information on, I'm gonna get choked up. Do you all know individually how many kids a week have to get taken away in an ambulance for treatment? Do you know individually? You just nod.
I don't.
I just heard in my professional capacity, 2 more kids, I know their names. We broke them. We did. You know the numbers, it's national. It's everywhere. People are upset. I don't like when people are sad and disrespectful to you guys. Everyone has a different perspective. But we hurt kids. And that's where some of like when people are saying advocacy, because if you don't get that information, Alexis, you have kids in our school, and so do you. If you don't cry about it, there's something wrong with you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with any of you. I think that you have different opinions. But there are children that can't take it anymore. And their parents see it. So I hope you respect the fact that there's a breakdown. And we could be Massapequa or we could hide. And I think we're better than Massapequa. I could live there. I chose here. Thank you very much.
Schofield, I was Hayden, I saw Hayden the other night, is he okay?
Yeah, he's getting treatment, but he'll be at the wrestling.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Christina Kramer, 361 East Broadway. As a parent who's been relentlessly advocating for parental choice, I've joined groups and partnered with neighboring towns, attended Save Our School meetings, and attended meetings with other parent groups to put our heads together in unity to continue to fight for the choice of masking and to stop the medical mandates, which we all know are coming. My question is, what steps are the board members taking to educate and advocate for parents? First, the Long Beach District declined to get on board with the Article 17 Massapequa lawsuit. I understand there were some financial obligations that hindered that decision on top of the fact that the majority of you didn't even know what it was before I brought it to your attention at the Board of Ed meeting. Dr. Ryan darted an immediate objection to join the lawsuit, and the rest of the board fell in line. Yes, ultimately it would have been a waste of taxpayer dollars because the suit lost on standing, but it would have been worth it to express to the district that you are behind our efforts and willing to take a stand. We have spent district money on things that were way less beneficial to the community, like plastic barriers that went unused for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just because you were reimbursed does not make it wise spending. Then there was Operation Shoe Drop, where you had the janitor remove all the shoes in an effort to silence the parents and the children who were trying to peacefully protest by putting those shoes outside the admin building as a demonstration of the students who will walk if you require poisonous jab mandates. You said you didn't know about it, that it was dangerous, and that but there was plenty of room to walk up those stairs and the ramp was untouched. You were upset that we didn't ask for permission. We don't need your permission to protest, and we don't answer to you about our medical choices. My question is, are each of you for parental choice, or are you for following orders regardless of the negative impact on the children of this district? The pharmaceutical companies have not fully disclosed the ingredients of the COVID jab. It is not here now, but we all know it's coming, and that you, as advocates for our children, plan to follow orders. We all know at this point the shot does not prevent the transmission of COVID, and that there is well-documented amounts of side effect possibilities with absolutely no liability from the school district or the pharmaceutical company. My question is, how many deaths or side effects need to happen to our children before you stop following orders? Then the Supreme Court ruled that the supposed mandates were unlawful and unenforceable. Honestly, the first sign of light in 2 years. We had an opportunity to let our children breathe again and share valuable expressions with each other once again. I have to say I was deeply disturbed when I saw videos of our district principals manning the doorways and demanding masks. Smiling children were not permitted in the Lido school and forced to wait in the parking lot until the cops were called. These were principals and securities following your orders, Dr. Gallagher. I have to ask, is this how you show your support for parental choice? You followed up with a letter saying the Supreme Court ruling had gray areas and you were waiting for clarity. You don't get to interpret the law and enforce only the ones that you're aligned with that are aligned with your personal beliefs. You also never questioned our unelected governor's orders. There went another opportunity to stand with parents' choice. We need you to advocate for us, please.
Anybody else? Okay. Announcements, Long Beach Classroom Teachers Association. Take your time.
Erin Chavis, 17 Vermont Street. My question is, what is the ramifications if we went with parent choice on the mask? Like, what would happen? Would we have the same outcome that we would all lose state funding, we'd all have to do virtual learning? Or is that even an option?
Again, what we were told is that the state would force us to go virtual. The funding issue, we could reject every bit of state funding that we get for anything, and we would still have to follow it.
So the only outcome was that they would make thousands of students sit at home and do virtual learning, even if they have no one in their house to watch them.
Well, that's unconstitutional. That part was unconstitutional, what was said, so the way awful one about it.
Long Beach Classroom Teachers Association.
She went about it through the Department of Health, which is unconstitutional, because she lost those legislative powers. From actually a Democratic legislator, if you want to get political, because you said it's not political, but clearly it is. But the Democratic legislator actually stopped her from getting these powers, these excessive powers. If you listen to the lawyer, Michael Demetrio and the other lawyer, Chapel Beglia, they actually described everything, how everything was unconstitutional the way she went about it. So by her telling you that, then the state telling you that you would have to shut down is absolutely wrong, and that's what's unconstitutional as well. She can't do that. She doesn't have the powers to do that, and if your lawyer is telling you otherwise, then you need to get rid of the lawyer.
Just come up to the mic.
I don't want to speak.
Please, right here.
Hi, Kim Kramer, 361 East Broadway. There's a bunch of stuff here, but I just want to sum it up. February 14th, there's HOCO is voting on a bunch of tyrannical measures that would impact the state in dramatic ways. I have to believe that many people in this district do not know anything about this. And a way you can advocate for the families that do not want their kids masked would be to educate the district about these 4 proposals that are being voted on February 14th.
Thank you. Classroom teacher. Mr. Wolf, go ahead.
Andrew Wolf, 241 East Broadway. So if the state says that they will shut the school down, shut the district down, I think it's time to call their bluff. Do what you gotta do. Call their bluff. And if they do try and shut us down, then we take it from there and see what happens. But until you take that step, you'll never know.
Thank you. Classroom Teachers Association.
I take the opportunity to thank everyone who's involved in the presentations this evening. I take oath to honor all the teachers and members of the set faculty retirement tonight's agenda. And I thank the community for coming out and expressing their concerns about, the state we're in. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Harvey. Group B, no comment. LBSEA, anybody? No. Parent Teacher Association, Zach?
Good evening. In light of recent inquiries regarding Long Beach PTA stance on masking, we thought we'd reach out to the community and shed some light on the issue. Our 8 PTA boards are comprised of over 50 volunteers across the district. Each and every volunteer has their own unique and personal views on school-related issues, including the current situation around mask mandate. The PTA remains impartial when it comes to politically related issues similar to the Board of Education elections. This is not because we as individuals don't have an opinion, but rather that because as an entity, we remain neutral. We will continue to provide a space and a platform for community members to receive information when we're able to do so. This afternoon, we received an email from the New York State PTA, an update from their meeting today with the governor on a host of COVID-related 19 matters, including mass quarantines and support of students. Here's a brief statement. We thank the governor today for today's crucial meeting, and we join her in looking forward to return normalcy in our school buildings. We have daily conversations with the governor's staff on issues facing our schools, including frequent conversations on COVID-19 and the questions parents and families are looking for answers to: masking, distancing, quarantines, academic recovery, and academic and social emotional support for all students, especially students with disabilities. To read more about the meeting today and other COVID-related information and New York State PTA's information, please visit newyorkstatepta.org/COVID.
Thank you, Ms. Heckman. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Can you go to class?